Arab-Israeli conflict? You could write it in the chat box. You can talk it in. It's a huge topic, so just let rip. I want to hear from everybody. We want to hear exactly what you know about it. It doesn't matter if you only know a little bit or if, you think you know something and it turns out that you don't. We just want to hear, when you hear the word Arab-Israeli conflict, what comes to mind? Very interesting. How long do you think the conflict's been going on for? Interesting. Since Israel was established, 1948. Okay. Does anyone think differently? War of Independence. Good. I'm glad you know these terms. It's very important that you know the terms and the dates. Really good to know that.
What?
Welcome, Hayden. Since World War I. Does anyone explain that?
It's since World War One because that's when the Ottoman Empire was split up into all these different small countries, and that's when many different types of people lived in this land, and there was a huge decision whose land was going to be, and they fought all the time.
Okay, interesting. Oh, someone's Skype's going. Okay, great. So it looks like a lot of you have a kind of an idea about that basically, like, the main point that you all said was that it's a fight about the land, about who owns the land, who has the right to the land. And some of you said it's been going on since Israel was established, and Danny, you just said that it's been going on since World War I. Actually, I think it's been going on for longer. Israel's always been a special land, and there's always been fights about who different people have ruled the land at different times. So this is another one of those examples of people who want to rule the land at a different time. Do you know who ruled the land in the past? Which kinds of, which groups of people? Which religions? The UK. Excellent, Danielle and Danny. Muslims specifically? More specific? Danny K, you mentioned it before. Who's Palestine? Which kind of people are they? Even think back even further history, like 10th century. Does anyone know? Christians, the Crusaders. Okay, the Crusaders came to Israel. Yes, the Greeks, excellent. Babylonians, fantastic. So lots and lots of people have been ruling over Israel over the years. I'm really impressed to see that you guys know so many different names of nations that ruled Israel. Israel was a Jewish state 3 times before 1948. It wasn't the first time. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a link to a video, a Zaption video, sorry, in the chat box. And it's from a guy called Dennis Prager, who's an excellent professor. And what we're going to do is you're just going to answer the questions on the video, and it should give you more of an idea about the conflict. Before we get, oh, thank you, Zach. But before you do that, I just want to clarify one thing about what is an Arab. An Arab, first of all, I don't like making generalizations. So to say all the Arabs this or all the Jews this, let's say some instead, because there are some Arabs who want peace, and there are some Jews who want peace, and there are some Jews who don't want peace. So it's really important to always remember when you're talking about things like this to not make any generalizations. Also, Arab means coming from an Arab country. So there are Arab Jews, okay? There are lots of Israelis who would hate to be called that, but they really come from Arab countries. So they're Arab Jews. Anyone who came from Persia or Morocco or Iraq or Iran, they're Arab Jews, okay? Arab doesn't necessarily mean anything about your religion. It means a place that you came from and a culture that you came from. Okay, that's two very important things to clarify. So now you can watch the Zaption. We're giving you about 6 minutes and watch it and answer your questions. And then we'll get back to it in the middle. Thank you. Don't forget to mute yourselves.
We got onto the video, but it just like not letting us watch it. It like keeps on loading, and it's been doing this for like 5 minutes now. Yeah, I don't like know why. But like it like we don't know like the link or whatever.
Write your question in the chat box. Thanks. Oh,
there is a state of Israel that believe that it should exist.
Okay, so I think most of you, if you didn't see it, I'm sorry about that. I sent you the YouTube link in the chat box, so you should be able to watch it on YouTube. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do that now. Those of you who did, what was interesting to you? Have you heard about it, about any of the things that were there before? What were the major events that changed or that made up the Israeli-Arab conflict? Someone we haven't heard from, preferably. Brooke? Hunter? Hayden? Anybody? Everybody? No one? What were the main events that made... Well, we're going to go into it in a bit more detail soon. What was the first one? Let's just put it that way first. What was the first thing that kind of made the conflict? Oh, that was also, sorry, one other thing. He didn't actually mention it on the video, but some of you mentioned that the conflict started when the state was founded, or World War I, or whatever. There was also, oh, thank you, Melissa and Daniel. Excellent. Okay. I just want to clarify something, that there were riots and there was violence between Palestinians and Jews living in Israel before the state was founded. So things did change after the state was founded, but there was violence before. Okay, so thank you. So the war in 1967, the Six-Day War, fantastic. That and the War of Independence, excellent. So those things all changed things. Why did they change things? Because beforehand, before the War of Independence, who was ruling the land? Or before the state was declared? Yeah, Danny?
Britain.
Britain, exactly. Okay, so it was kind of neutral, right? It wasn't the Palestinians and it wasn't the Jews. The second that the Jews started ruling the land, the Palestinians, they had wanted to rule the land as well. Okay, so that was one thing. Secondly, the Six-Day War. What changed after the Six-Day War? The 1948 war was basically who is in charge of the land. The Six-Day War, what changed? Okay, so to give you some more information on what changed in the Six-Day War, Zach is going to move on to our next section.
Oh no. Yes, just do you mind sharing
Oh.
the screen? I by
Sure.
mistake just exited the so right, so as Michal said, and as you saw, there were certain things that led to really an increasing conflict and probably which lit the spark of the fire the most of what we have today and what we still see the repercussions in 2016 from all the way back. Two of those specifically were the war in 1948, aka the Independence War, and the Six-Day War, which many people talked about, which was in 1967, which was a 6-day war. And as you see in the title here, the consequences, Israel and Palestine. Does anyone know what this is a picture of? Well, let's start with, do you know who the guy in the middle is standing?
The Prime Minister.
Okay, great. The Prime Minister at the time, or yeah, I guess he was the Prime Minister at the time. Do you know what his name was? I'll give you a hint. He was the first Prime Minister of Israel. Oh, great, Danielle. Yeah, awesome.
Ditto.
Right. Danielle was, not Danielle, sorry. David Ben-Gurion was the first Prime Minister of Israel, and he was the person, this was in a Tel Aviv museum, which is now I think this is like the Independence Hall, I forget the name, of Israel, which is where the nation, Israel was declared as a state. So Michal is going to post a link to a thing link, which is divided up into two sides. The left side is 1967, gives you some information, but it gives you information looking at the consequences of 1967 in the eyes of both the Israelis and the Palestinians. And then on the right side, because we're going, Hebrew goes from right to left, and on the right side is the same thing, explaining a bit of 1948 and the perspective of the consequences of 1948 from the Israeli side and the Palestinian side. Each side has its own question. Each side has its own question. Please make sure that you answer both questions in the chat box, and we'll give you a couple minutes to do this, to read through all the information, to check out the pictures, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to write on the text box. Okay. Really great answers, and a lot of people contributing, which is really, really nice. Love to hear from people who not participated as much today, but so hopefully we'll get something from you. So like a lot of you have shown from the thing link, you see the different things that come up because of the declaration and Israel becoming a Jewish state, and also Israel gaining more territory in its in a fight of preservation. People try to spin that 1967 was a war that Israel tried to do to capture more land, and that's just not true. In 1967, all the Arab countries surrounding Israel were planning on attacking, and Israel just did what's called a preemptive strike, where they went in first and miraculously won this amazing, amazing war, which gave them a lot more land. Now, at first, that seemed like a good thing, and maybe it was, but it no doubt has caused many, many issues up until today. And that brings us to our next section, which is the conflict in Israel today. And what we're going to do, just as an introduction, is we're going to post a link to a Lino board. On the Lino board, you will see 3 pictures of different things that exist in Israel today. And what we'd like you to do is, there's a question on the Lino, which is quite clear. Please follow the instructions. We'll take around 4 or 5 minutes to do this. And then we'll meet back here to go through each of those items a little bit more in depth, to give you a little bit more detail, and we'll go over some of your answers. Okay, so take the next 3, 4, 5 minutes to do it. If you have any questions, please just write it on the chat box. Michal posted the link. Okay, let me...
I think because you changed the title, you now have a new link.
Okay, so hold on, everyone. I'll find it. Do not fret. I'll be posting in 1 second. Okay, here we go. Yeah, it's not working. Okay, guys, here's the new link. Go on this. This should work. Okay, great.
My Nicole's and our text box isn't working. Can we just speak verbally?
Yeah, you can post on the lino board. Please feel free to do both.
No, we can't.
Okay. Yeah, please feel free.
Okay. So
Wait, should we talk now or later?
You can wait a minute or two. We'll be finished.
okay.
Okay. Those of you who want to speak, or Nicola and Haley, I think you guys wanted to speak. Please feel free to do so.
So it says like so the question is like that. Okay. So the pictures show that like they're like it's blocking off like the one in the like all the way on the right. It's like where they won't let people go past it, and it says like because like maybe there's like danger going on and they don't want like people to like come into each other's like nation.
Yeah, and it's like really dangerous with like all the walls and stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
That's there's danger.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So what was on these lino boards were this lino board, and I just want to go into it rather quickly, and I'm going to share my screen with you. Hold on. Oh, did you just share, Michal? Okay. So we're just gonna go through this quickly, and I'm if I can have volunteers to read, please, that would be really helpful. I took the 3 pictures on the lino and I made 3 slides, 3 quick slides that we're going to go through. Can we have someone read this first slide, please? Yes, Melissa?
Security fence. The security fence lies on the border between Israel and the Palestinian land. Construction began after the Second Intifada when hundreds of Israelis were killed and suicide attacks. The security fence has single-handedly saved thousands of innocent Israeli lives.
Right. So just as is like said there, basically this, what you see, it's called the security fence. There are parts that are fence and there are parts that are wall, as you see right there. On the other side is an Arab town. And not to get so technical, but basically this security fence lies on the border of places that not completely, but basically that divides Arab and Israeli land, or Palestinian and Israeli land.
I can tell you guys that I
Yeah.
drive past that every single day, and I feel safer because of that fence.
Right.
Because there are a lot of stones thrown on the road that I drive on. Thank God I've never experienced that, and I hope never to experience that. But that's one way of preventing, terrorists from shooting at cars or throwing rocks at cars.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
yeah.
Before this was built, there were the Intifada, which was in around 2001. There were terrorists coming in, and you may hear this year people coming in and stabbing. Those years, people were coming in onto buses and blowing up buses, and that basically has stopped more or less in Israel. You do have here and there, but this has been an extremely important thing. And this is what we're showing you are things that people are going to say in the media and all around they're going to try to take this and skew it and say that this is a terrible thing. Ultimately, it's for peace. And the next two things are really connected to that. So we'll be able to go through quickly. You want roadblocks. Can we have a volunteer to read, please?
I'll read.
Thank you.
Okay. Roadblocks. Similar to the security fence, roadblocks are areas stationed on the borders of Israel and Palestinian land. It is controlled by the Israelis and acts as a security measure to stop potential terrorists from entering Israel. This year alone, there have been tens of attacks on Israeli soldiers by terrorists trying to enter into Israel and causing harm.
Great. This is just one type. There are many different types of roadblocks. Basically, looks like this. You have soldiers who when anyone's driving through, and it could be Israeli, it could be Arab, it could be anything, and they basically go through and make sure that the people who are coming in are not terrorists and everyone is safe. Some of the things that it causes, as you can see, people are going to be waiting in lines. Could take a long time. If you have a job, this could you may have to travel an extra hour earlier because of these things. But again, it's another security measure. Some places way more intense. Like on the way to get to where Michal lives from Jerusalem, it's a much more intense roadblock. And it's sometimes they're not even on the board. It's more intense than this.
They're worse than that.
Right. Okay, you want to go to the next one, please? And last one, which is probably the most important one that we'll read about. Anyone want to volunteer? Yes, Daniel. Daniel Fuchs. Daniel Fuchs, you're muted.
Okay, settlements, otherwise known as villages in Judea and Samaria, are small and large villages built in the West Bank. The West Bank, an area of land that was unowned by anyone prior to 1967, was the home of many Arabs and still remains today. Jews have gone into unclaimed areas and have purchased land from Arabs to set up homes in these areas. These settlements have caused much controversy in Israel, as there are many people who believe that Jews should be able to live there and many who believe the opposite.
All right, thank you very much. Basically, if you don't know about these, you'll definitely hear about them. Again, the West Bank, a pretty controversial area, an area that mainly Arabs lived before 1967, but again, no one had ownership over it as like a nation. And after 1967, and even a little bit before that, Jews would build in that area. The name in terms of like the Jewish perspective is not the West Bank, but rather Judea and Samaria, which were ancient lands, part of the ancient borders of Israel. And that's why you had some prime ministers who would not even refer a prime minister, for example, like Menachem Begin, they would not call it the West Bank. They would call it only Judea and Samaria because that was their term. And settlements are being built there. They're continuously being built there. There's questions about whether they should be built there or not. Should we just keep the ones we have and not allow any more? And it's a very controversial thing. All right, so that was that. I just think these were very important that you guys knew these. Let's skip this. We go to the next part, Michal.
Okay, go ahead, Zach.
Oh, you just go. Okay, continue.
Oh, I can do it. Okay, okay, so some people, you might also hear in the news that Arabs are restricted. So as you saw before with the roadblocks and the security fence, yes, there is some restriction. And actually, at the place where I work, we work with some Arab schools, and we were just trying to plan an evening for them to come in with their families. And we were just planning to do it at nighttime, completely oblivious to the fact that some of the areas in which they live, they have what's it called? Curfew, where they're not allowed to go out after certain hours. And that's something that, yes, is restrictive if you live in one of those areas. And it's unfortunate that some people have to go through this who are innocent people, but that's unfortunately because of threats of terrorism from those places where there are lots of terrorists and terrorist activities. So, but a lot of these Arabs who are Israeli Arabs who live in regular parts of Israel, and there are plenty of those, are not restricted in any way. And you can see here, oops, oh, the last picture's gone for some reason. Okay, you can see here on the right-hand side, Arabs who are singers, news anchors. Lucy Arish is a very, very good news anchor. Arabs who serve in the Israeli army, Arabs who are members of parliament, Arabs who are doctors, and apparently about 30% of Arabs are doctors. So these are all, these things all show that Arabs can and are a part of society in Israel and are not necessarily restricted, and can have access to lots of opportunities in Israel that compared to other places in the Middle East, they might not necessarily have. So we're going to very, very quickly look at Israel and media bias. We spoke a bit about different things that you might hear in the media. I want to just show you some headlines, and I want you to tell me. Oh, man. Okay, I'm going to have to share it this way instead. Sorry. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Okay. Come on. Here we go. Okay, so first of all, here's a little comic. What do you think about this? Do you think this happens? Anybody? Do you think people, when the news is about Israel, okay, this is just showing that when the news is about Israel, people say that it's basically a very biased towards Israel, as opposed to say if it was the US or say Belgium in the past few weeks, etc. Okay, so I'd like you just quickly to tell me, look at these headlines and what do these headlines tell us? If you just read this headline, what do you think? Anybody? Okay, so if you look here carefully, you can see, yes, thank you, Jacob. They do make it sound like Israel is bad, because why, how's it written? Very biased, right? Palestinian shot dead. We don't know why the Palestinian shot dead. We don't know who the Palestinian is. We don't know what he did to be shot dead. Okay? Palestinians, so the one here on the left-hand side, the first article headline said the 3 Palestinians killed as daily violence crimes on, which you have no idea, you think that they're innocent Palestinians. And then they updated that and changed it to Palestinians kill Israeli officer, wound another before being killed. Notice that the word is used is what word? Palestinians, as opposed to, what should it be?
Arabs.
No. Terrorist, right? Terrorist, okay? Because that's what they are, they're terrorists. Most people either wouldn't, if a Palestinian who likes peace wouldn't want someone to call them Palestinians either, because that doesn't resemble everybody, okay? And here you can see that the word terrorist is in commas. They don't really think it's a terrorist. They don't even know if it's a terrorist. Okay, so you can see here that even though the article later explains what actually happened, once the headline's like that, people have seen that, and that's it. And it also says, okay, shot dead a Palestinian gunman as opposed to a terrorist. Okay? And of course, they have to include it in the context of everything else that happens there. So it's a lot. There are a lot of problems with bias in the media. And what can we do about it? That's true, Melissa. It makes them sound like ordinary civilians and that Israel's just killing people for no reason. But there are things that you can do about it. What can you do about it? Number one, you can write articles to newspapers. If they're publishing articles like that, you can write a letter to the newspaper. You can educate people, lots of things. So for your independent exercise, this you can copy this link and we'll put it in the chat box and we'll also send it to you in the email of all different ideas how you can be an advocate for Israel. Vote on which one you'd like to do. And if there's something else that's not there, you can add that in as well. There are lots of Israel advocacy programs for students, even in high school. So that's something you might be interested in doing. And sorry for running over time.
It's a very important class. Very important.
Yes. We spent a lot of time thinking exactly about how we were going to present it, and it's very hard to fit it into 1 hour. Because we've touched topics, but we haven't really gone into it in detail. So sites like Stand With Us have some really good resources if you're interested in that. Keep learning. Don't let it end here. So thank you very much, and have a great week. And I'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.